No, 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 no.
The next station will be Fortuna 69.
Everybody knows that Warframe is all about the farm. That's an undisputed fact. However, there is a limit to how much grinding players can endure. That's something that not everyone would agree with, because free-to-play games are free, therefore the developers can throw in as much farming as they want as long as the game doesn't become pay-to-win. Warframe is basically a PvE-only game, so pay-to-win really didn't pop up on anyone's radar until Riven mods came along. I'm not trying to imply that Riven mods are pay-to-win. While it's technically true that you can pay to get platinum which you can use to acquire Riven mods, which directly affect your damage output in the game, that doesn't necessarily mean that Riven mods make Warframe pay-to-win, because platinum can be earned for free by just trading prime parts. Not to mention that Warframe is primarily a PvE game, meaning that the only thing that spending money for more damage does is make you a more powerful teammate. The pay-to-win question came up again when mod drop chance boosters were launched alongside Atlas Prime. Just like Riven mods, there aren't any real problems to be had, because pay-to-win for a strictly co-op game just doesn't exist. However, also like Riven mods, the mod drop chance booster just makes the game flat out easier and better for those players who are able to fork out the cash. There isn't anything necessarily wrong with this, because again, Warframe is basically PvE only, so spending money for boosters or Riven mods isn't doing anything to ruin the experience of other players, because again, this is a co-op game. However, that's not the point here. The point is that while the overall grind of the game has been tolerable for the past few years, the Old Blood and Empyrean are really pushing it. Not even including the sheer amount of bugs that both updates hit on launch, both updates have increased the amount of time players have to spend just to get anything done, while at the same time decreasing the rewards you get for your efforts. Let's take the Old Blood as an example. The Old Blood was a relatively hyped update because it started off as the Kingpin system that was teased as far back as DevStream 91, and the original vision that Steve had for it was outstanding at the time, an enemy that would grow stronger over time that you would eventually have to deal with in some form. Having something like this was a brilliant breath of fresh air, because players could finally have a unique but truly challenging enemy that wouldn't be killed by a single shot from a Rubico Prime. On top of that, when the Kingpin system evolved into the Kuva Leech system, it would be interconnected with Railjack.
But I was wondering if you guys would like to see the Kingpin system. Okay, we can do that. So there's a problem Rebecca has, and we're not calling them Kingpins. They are not created when you kill them. I mean, they are not created when they kill you. They are created when you kill them. They are what we like to call Kuva Liches. And they are spiked with Kuva, and they go out in the field hoping that you will kill them with a Warframe power so that they can steal it. And this is a character custom to you that will have a long-term relationship with you. And Rebecca has one that's been hounding her for a while and has grown so powerful that he controls his own capital ship now. So let's see if Galleon Orgo is detected anywhere. There we go.
Kuvalich confirmed. Close in. Your voltage ran through me. My organs fried. My mind shattered. You killed me, and I grew stronger. I built a small empire. You tore it down, obliterated my fleet, killed me over and over, and still I grew stronger. Friend, I've been so impatient to meet you again.
Of course, that was the intended vision. After much waiting, we got instead was drastically different. A truly challenging enemy turned out to be nothing more than two different character personalities with a randomly generated weapon that could be killed in as little as under a day. Obviously the original vision for things will never be implemented as is, because there are technical limitations and such, but the issue with the old blood besides the bugs is the sheer amount of time players have to put in to just get a single Kuva weapon to drop. While it's true that DE eventually implemented the Crimson Branch to make it easier for players to trade for the lashes they want, that still doesn't solve the problem of just how much time players spend for such little reward. Assuming that you don't want to spend platinum to just buy a Kuva Leech from another player, you'd have to grind for a Kuva Leech until you get one with the weapon and or ephemera you want, and considering how there are 13 different Kuva weapons, and each Lich spawns with a randomly generated one, you're going to be spending a lot of time for just a single weapon. While it's true that lashes can no longer give the same weapon back to back, that doesn't do much to help players who are still on the grind for Kuva weapons. Another issue besides the glaring amount of grind required just to obtain one Kuva weapon is how as they are currently, the Kuva Leech system doesn't offer anything worthwhile to the game aside from new weapons and ephemeras. Once you obtain all the Kuva weapons, you're done. You have absolutely no need to touch a Lich again unless new items are added to their drop table or they get implemented into Railjack eventually. Otherwise, it's just another isolated farming island in Warframe, just like the plains of Eidolon and Fortuna. Speaking of isolated, Railjack. Although it was nice to see Railjack be released this year, especially considering how hilariously wrong DE got their own roadmap, it arguably would have been significantly better if Railjack was released in 2020 in a more playable, bug-free, and balanced state. If the RNG of Riven mods in the Kuva Leech system wasn't enough already, now Railjack throws in its own flavor of randomness, in the form of stats for Railjack parts. This normally wouldn't be that big of a deal, until you realize that the standard Railjack you are given tears more easily than wet paper, and in order to unlock the full potential of your Railjack, you need a Vida reactor, which can grant up to 100 bonus capacity. However, that reactor is locked behind a 2% drop rate of the highest level area of Railjack, not to mention that the reactor itself has a randomly generated stat on it, meaning that your hours of grind could be rewarded with something about as powerful as a Slug. And if you've forgotten already, this can only be acquired in the Vale area of Railjack, which the player has to reach first. Keep in mind that your only hope of having an actual tanky Railjack is to use Mark III Railjack components, which again, only drop in the Vale. And is the grind worth it? Hardly. While it's true that Railjack is in its primitive 1.0 state, it's not connected to Kuva Leech or any other aspect of Warframe besides Archwing, and we all know how much we love Archwing. The last few updates of new content have been basically nothing but hamster wheels for the players, which I assume are put in place to buy time for the real hyped content to come out. If the grind gave decent rewards, I wouldn't mind it. However, not everyone can afford to simply throw some platinum at the problem to make it go away. Not everyone can devote more than a few hours per week to Warframe, because surprisingly, some people have things to do in real life. Remember that Methane Extract exists, and absolutely nobody asked for it to. My overall point here is, I already have low expectations for 2020, given these last few patches we've been given. That's why I'm hoping that next year focuses more on just fucking improving the game instead of shoving more farming content to do down our throats. It's perfectly fine to have a creative vision for Warframe, but when that creative vision is watered down to nothing more but incessant time wasting, suddenly I'm no longer surprised that Destiny 2 is sucking away Warframe's player base. Don't get me wrong. Grind is fine, if it's at least rewarding for the player in a meaningful way. However, after the basically scripted events we were given at TennoCon and the countless delayed comments we've been told, only to be given acres of more grinding to do, I have to say, grindless content. And is that a good thing for Warframe, after years of evolution? No. Absolutely not. Before you tell me that I'm being unfair to DE because they're a small indie developer, you should probably realize that DE can no longer be considered small. They possess one of the most widely known free-to-play games of the PC platform and have a big enough player base that they can successfully host an annual convention for it. A small indie developer could never do this. If you want to know what a real small indie developer looks like, go look at GTFO. which is a game being developed by literally only 9 people. The only thing in Warframe that connects everything together is the affinity booster. If that doesn't say how bad the grinding is now, I don't know what else does besides the simple statement. Grindless content. Thank you for watching.